The wind howled like a dying animal as Deanna Anderson fought to keep the stagecoach steady through the worst blizzard she had seen in her 24 years. Her fingers so numb inside her gloves she could barely feel the leather reins cutting into her palms. The horses strained against the harness, their breath coming out in great plumes of white that vanished instantly into the swirling snow. And somewhere in the back of her mind, Deanna wondered if this was how she would die, frozen solid on the driver's bench of an empty stagecoach because her father had fallen sick, and there was no one else to make the run from Tascosa, Texas, to the next station, 30 miles north. She had left at dawn when the sky was merely gray and threatening, but now, 5 hours into what should have been a 4-hour journey, the world had turned into a white nightmare where earth and sky merged into one suffocating wall of ice and wind. Her father, William Anderson, lay fevered in their small house on the edge of Tascosa, and the medicine he needed was at the next station, waiting for her return trip. She had promised him she would make the run, deliver the mail and small parcels that were her cargo, and bring back the supplies that would save his life. The stagecoach company her father had worked for these past 15 years depended on reliable service, blizzard or not, and the Andersons had never missed a run. Diana squinted through the snow, trying to make out the road ahead, but visibility had shrunk to perhaps 10 feet. She was navigating by instinct now, by the feel of the land beneath the wheels, by the way the horses naturally wanted to drift right where the road curved around a creek bed. Her face felt like leather stretched too tight over bone, and her feet had lost all sensation an hour ago. She knew she was in trouble, real trouble, the kind that killed people. The lead horse stumbled, and for a heart-stopping moment the entire coach lurched sideways. Deanna hauled on the reins, calling out encouragement to the team in a voice that cracked from the cold. They steadied, but barely. She could feel their exhaustion through the lines, the way they pulled without enthusiasm, just putting one hoof in front of the other because stopping meant freezing. She was considering whether she should try to find shelter or push on when she heard it. The sound of hoofbeats, muffled by the snow but unmistakable. Deanna turned her head, squinting against the wind, and saw a dark shape materializing out of the white. A rider on a big bay horse, both of them coated in snow, coming up fast on the left side of the coach. The man pulled alongside, close enough that she could make out his features beneath the brim of his hat and the bandana he had pulled up over his nose and mouth. Blue eyes met hers, sharp and alert despite the conditions. He pulled down the bandana, revealing a face weathered by sun and wind, strong-jawed and somewhere in his late 20s, with a day's worth of dark stubble. "Madam," he shouted over the wind, his voice deep and carrying. "That seat needs filling. You cannot drive this rig alone in these conditions." "I am managing just fine," Deanna shouted back, though her chattering teeth undermined her claim. "No, madam, you are not," he replied, guiding his horse closer until his stirrup nearly touched the coach wheel. "Your lead horse is favoring her left foreleg, your off-wheeler is about done in, and you have drifted a 1/4 mile south of the road. Another mile and you will be in a ravine." Deanna felt a spike of fear cut through the cold. He was right about the horses. She could feel it now that he had said it. And if they were off the road, she had been navigating blind worse than she thought. "Who are you?" she demanded. "Nathan Norwood, madam. I have a ranch about 5 miles east of here. Saw your coach from a rise before the visibility went to hell and figured you might need help." He did not wait for her permission. In one smooth motion, he dismounted from his bay, tied the horse's reins to the back of the coach, and climbed up onto the driver's bench beside her. "Move over." Deanna wanted to argue, wanted to maintain that she could handle this alone, but the truth was she could not feel her hands anymore, and exhaustion was making her vision blur. She slid over on the bench, and Nathan Norwood took the reins from her stiff fingers with a gentleness that surprised her. "Hold on to me," he said, not looking at her, his attention on the team. "So you do not fall off," Pride warred with common sense. Common sense won. Deanna grasped the back of his heavy coat with both hands, feeling the warmth of him even through the layers of wool and leather. He made a clicking sound with his tongue and gave the reins a subtle shift, and the horses responded as though they had been waiting for a competent hand. The coach straightened, and Nathan guided them in a wide arc that Diana realized was bringing them back toward the road. "How can you tell where we are?" she asked, her mouth close to his ear so he could hear her. "Trees," he said simply, nodding toward shapes she could barely make out through the snow. "Cottonwoods grow along the creek. Road runs parallel about 50 yards west. And I know this country like I know my own name." They rode in silence for a while, Diana clinging to his coat, slowly becoming aware of details she had been too cold and frightened to notice before. The breadth of his shoulders, the confident way he held the reins, not fighting the horses but guiding them with minimal effort. The smell of leather and horse and something else, something warm and masculine that made her suddenly conscious of how close they were sitting. "Where were you headed?" Nathan asked after they had been traveling for perhaps 20 minutes. The snow seemed to be letting up slightly, or perhaps that was wishful thinking. "North Station," Deanna said. "I have mail and parcels to deliver, then I need to get back to Tascosa. My father is sick and needs medicine." Nathan glanced at her for the first time since taking the reins, and she saw something shift in his expression. Concern, maybe, or calculation. "North Station is another 2 hours in this weather," he said. "And that is if the storm does not get worse, which it will. This is just a lull." "I do not have a choice," Deanna said firmly. "I made a promise." "You made a promise you cannot keep if you are dead," Nathan replied, his voice matter of fact rather than harsh. "My ranch is closer. Maybe 45 minutes if we push. You can shelter there, let the horses rest, wait out the worst of the storm." "No," Deanna said immediately. "I have to make the delivery, and I have to get back with the medicine." "What kind of medicine?" Laudanum and quinine. "For the fever." Nathan was quiet for a moment, guiding the team around what looked like a snowdrift but might have been a boulder. Deanna could not tell any more. "I have quinine at the ranch," he said finally. "Not laudanum, but quinine for sure. Had to treat 3 of my ranch hands for fever last month. Still have half a bottle." Deanna felt something unclench in her chest. If she could get quinine to her father, that was the most important thing. The laudanum was for pain, and while it would help, it was not what would break the fever. "You would give it to me?" she asked. "Yes, madam," Nathan said simply. "Why?" He turned to look at her again, and this time his eyes held something that made her breath catch. Not pity. Respect, maybe, or just simple human decency, which in her experience was not always simple and not always decent. "Because your father is sick, and you are trying to help him," Nathan said. "And because I would not leave a dog out in this weather, much less a woman trying to do a man's job all alone." The phrase "man's job" would have made her bristle on any other day, but Deanna was too cold and too grateful to argue. Instead, she asked, "What about the mail, the parcels?" "They will keep until tomorrow," Nathan said. "Storm should blow through by morning. I will help you make the delivery then." It was a reasonable plan, a sensible plan. Deanna knew she should accept it, but something in her resisted. She had never failed to complete a run. Never. It was a point of pride for her father, and it had become one for her too in the year since she had started helping him regularly. As if reading her thoughts, Nathan said quietly, "Your father would want you alive more than he would want the mail delivered on time." "You do not know my father," Deanna said, but there was no heat in it. "No, madam, I do not. But I know men who work the stage lines, and I know they do not raise foolish daughters. Staying out in this storm would be foolish." Diana wanted to argue, but the wind chose that moment to pick up again, driving snow into her face with stinging force. She felt Nathan lean into it, shielding her slightly with his body, and made her decision. "All right," she said. "We will go to your ranch." She felt rather than saw him nod. He made that clicking sound again, and the horses picked up their pace slightly, as if they too sensed shelter was near. The 45 minutes Nathan had estimated turned into an hour, and by the time Deanna saw the dark shapes of buildings emerging from the white, she had lost feeling in her legs entirely and was listing against Nathan's side, barely conscious. She felt the coach slow, heard voices shouting, felt strong hands reach up to pull her down from the bench. "Get her inside," Nathan's voice, sharp with command. "And see to the horses. All of them, including my bay tied on the back." Deanna tried to protest that she could walk, but her legs would not support her weight. Someone, a man with a weathered face and kind eyes, scooped her up like she weighed nothing and carried her through snow that came up past his knees. She caught a glimpse of a long, low ranch house, smoke coming from the chimney, and then she was inside, blessed warmth hitting her like a physical blow. "Set her by the fire, James," Nathan's voice again. He must have followed them in. "Not too close. We need to warm her up slow or she will lose fingers and toes." Deanna wanted to say she was fine, that she just needed a minute, but when she tried to speak her jaw would not work right. Hands, gentle but efficient, began removing her outer layers. Her heavy coat, crusted with ice. Her gloves, which had frozen to the shape of her fingers. Her boots, which took 2 men working together to pull off. "Get some blankets," Nathan ordered, "and heat water for tea, not too hot, lukewarm." Deanna found herself wrapped in what felt like half a dozen quilts, seated in a chair so close to the fireplace she could feel the heat radiating against her face. Slowly, painfully, sensation began returning to her extremities. It hurt. God, it hurt worse than the cold had, 1,000 needles stabbing into her fingers and toes all at once. "I know," Nathan's voice, close by. She opened eyes she had not realized she had closed and found him crouching beside her chair, his face level with hers. He had removed his coat and hat, and she could see him properly for the first time. Dark hair, a little too long and curling slightly at the ends, those blue eyes, direct and assessing, a nose that had been broken at least once. A mouth that looked like it smiled easily, though it was set in serious lines now. "The pain means you are warming up, means you will keep your fingers." "How long?" she managed to ask through chattering teeth. "Another hour before you will be able to feel your feet properly," he said. "Maybe 2. You were close to frostbite, but I think we got you in time." A man Deanna had not seen before, older with silver hair, appeared with a cup of tea. Nathan took it and held it to Deanna's lips. She sipped, grateful for the warmth even though it was barely more than body temperature. "Small sips," Nathan said. "Too much too fast and you will be sick." Diana obeyed, her eyes wandering around the room as sensation slowly returned. It was a large space, clearly the main room of the ranch house. A massive stone fireplace dominated one wall. Sturdy furniture, obviously handmade but well crafted. Bookshelves lined another wall, packed with volumes that looked well read. A rifle and a shotgun hung above the fireplace, within easy reach but ornamental in their placement. It was a man's space, but it was clean and orderly in a way that suggested either discipline or a good housekeeper. "You live here alone?" she asked when she could speak more easily. "With my ranch hands," Nathan said. We have a bunkhouse for them, but some of the men are in and out of the main house during the day. James there," he nodded to the man who had carried her in, "is my foreman. Been with me since I bought this place 4 years ago. Where is everyone else?" "Hunkered down in the bunkhouse, waiting out the storm. James came to the main house when he heard the coach. We do not get much traffic out here, and none in weather like this." Diana took another sip of tea, feeling strength returning slowly. Her mind was starting to work again, past the immediate crisis of survival. "The quinine," she said. "You said you had quinine." "I do," Nathan confirmed. "I will get it for you once you are warmed through, but you are not going anywhere tonight. That storm is getting worse, not better." As if to confirm his words, the wind howled around the house, making the shutters rattle. Diana closed her eyes briefly, fighting frustration. Every hour she delayed was another hour her father went without medicine. "He needs it," she said quietly. "I know," Nathan said, and his voice was gentle. "But you getting yourself killed on the way back to Tascosa would not help him. The storm will blow through. You will get the medicine to him, just not tonight." Diana knew he was right, but knowing it did not make it easier. She sipped more tea, letting the warmth spread through her, and tried not to think about her father, alone and fevered, waiting for her return. The next hour passed in a strange haze. Nathan stayed by her side, periodically offering her more tea, then eventually a bowl of soup that tasted like the best thing she had ever eaten. Feeling returned to her extremities in waves of painful pins and needles, but Nathan had been right. She did not seem to have frostbite. When she could finally wiggle her toes without wincing, he helped her stand, supporting her weight until she could find her balance. "There is a bedroom you can use," he said. "Used to be my mother's before she passed. It has a stove and plenty of blankets. You should rest." "I should check on the horses," Diana protested. "The horses are fine," Nathan said firmly. "James has them in the barn, rubbed down and fed. Your coach is secure. Everything is taken care of. What you need is sleep." Diana wanted to argue, but exhaustion was catching up with her now that the immediate danger had passed. She let Nathan guide her down a short hallway to a room that was smaller than the main living area but comfortable. A narrow bed with a thick mattress. A small stove already burning warm. A washstand with a pitcher and basin. And she noted with relief a chamber pot discreetly placed in the corner. "There is water in the pitcher," Nathan said. "Not hot but not frozen either, and I will leave you some of my mother's old clothes. Yours need to dry." "You do not have to," Diana started, but Nathan cut her off with a look. "Yes, I do," he said simply. "You are a guest in my house and you nearly died getting here. Let me help." There was something in his voice that made arguing seem petty. Diana nodded, and Nathan left, closing the door quietly behind him. She stood in the middle of the room for a moment, alone for the first time since he had ridden up beside the coach, and felt the full weight of the day settle on her shoulders. She had nearly died. If Nathan Norwood had not found her, she would have driven that coach right into a ravine or frozen to death on the driver's bench. Her father would have died waiting for medicine that never came, and the stage company would have lost a coach and a team of horses. All because she had been too proud and too determined to turn back when the weather turned. Diana sank onto the edge of the bed, her hands shaking slightly. Not from cold this time, but from delayed fear. She had been so focused on survival, on keeping the horses moving and the coach upright, that she had not had time to be afraid. Now, in the warmth and safety of Nathan's house, fear caught up with her. A soft knock on the door made her look up. Nathan entered, carrying a bundle of clothes. "These were my mother's," he said, setting them on the bed beside her. "She was about your size, I think. They are old-fashioned, but they are warm and dry." "Thank you," Diana said, and meant it. Nathan started to leave, then paused in the doorway. "You did good out there," he said quietly. "Most men would not have made it as far as you did. Your father should be proud." Before Deanna could respond, he was gone, the door closing softly behind him. She stared at the closed door for a long moment, something warm and unfamiliar blooming in her chest. Then she turned her attention to the bundle of clothes, pushing aside the feeling to examine later. Diana woke to pale gray light filtering through the window and the smell of coffee and bacon. For a moment she could not remember where she was, and then the events of the previous day came rushing back. The blizzard, Nathan Norwood appearing out of the snow, the ranch house. She sat up, wincing at sore muscles, and realized she had slept in her borrowed clothes, too exhausted to even properly undress. The storm had passed. She could tell by the quality of the light and the absence of wind howling around the house. Deanna quickly used the chamber pot, splashed cold water on her face from the pitcher, and tried to make herself presentable. Her own clothes, she discovered, had been left folded on a chair by the door, dry and clean. She changed quickly, grateful to be back in familiar garments, and ventured out into the main room. Nathan was at the stove, cooking. He turned when he heard her footsteps, and Diana saw him take in her appearance with one quick, assessing glance. "Morning," he said. "How do you feel?" "Sore," Deanna admitted, "but alive." "That is better than the alternative," Nathan said with a slight smile. It transformed his face, softening the harsh lines into something approachable and warm. "Coffee, please." He poured her a cup, black and strong, and Deanna wrapped her hands around it, savoring the warmth. Through the window, she could see the world buried in white. Snow had drifted against the side of the house, and the sky, though no longer actively snowing, was still heavy and gray. "How deep is it?" she asked. 3 feet in places," Nathan said. "Less where the wind blew it clear. Your horses are fine. I checked on them this morning." "Thank you," Deanna said. She sipped the coffee, then asked the question that had been on her mind since waking. "Can I get back to Tascosa today?" Nathan turned back to the stove, flipping bacon. "Maybe," he said. "If we take it slow and I come with you, the roads will be bad, but the coach can handle it if we are careful." "You do not have to come with me," Deanna said automatically. "Yes, I do," Nathan replied, echoing his words from the night before. "You are not going out there alone again." Diana wanted to argue, but the truth was she did not want to face those roads alone, not after yesterday. And there was something else, something she was less willing to examine. She liked Nathan Norwood, liked his calm competence, his quiet strength, the way he helped without making her feel diminished by the help. "All right," she said. "Thank you." They ate breakfast together, bacon and eggs and biscuits that Nathan made himself, clearly practiced at the task. Deanna learned that he was 28, that he had bought the ranch with money saved from working cattle drives, that his mother had died 2 years ago and his father before that, leaving him alone except for his ranch hands. "What about you?" Nathan asked, sopping up egg yolk with a piece of biscuit. "How did you end up driving a stage?" "My father has been doing it for 15 years, Deanna said. "My mother died when I was young, and he raised me on the stage routes. I have been helping him since I was old enough to handle the reins. This past year, since he started getting sick more often, I have been making runs on my own." "That is unusual," Nathan observed. "Most stage companies would not hire a woman." "They did not hire me," Deanna said with a slight smile. "They hired my father. I just drive in his place when he cannot. And they allow that. They look the other way as long as the mail gets delivered on time." Nathan nodded, understanding. "What will you do if your father gets too sick to work at all?" It was a question Diana had been avoiding, but hearing it spoken aloud made her face it. "I do not know," she admitted. Find other work, I suppose. I can cook and clean. I am good with numbers. Maybe I could find something in Tascosa. Or you could keep driving the stage, Nathan said. Diana laughed, but there was no humor in it. No stage company would hire a woman permanently. Then maybe you should start your own, Nathan said, and he sounded serious. Diana stared at him. With what money? I am just saying, Nathan said, meeting her eyes. You are good at what you do. I have seen men with 20 years' experience who could not have handled that team as well as you did yesterday, even before the storm. Seems a shame to give up something you are good at just because other people are too foolish to see it. Something in Diana's chest tightened. She had never heard anyone, not even her father, speak so matter-of-factly about her abilities. It was always qualified with surprise, with for a woman, or despite being. Nathan just stated it as fact. Thank you, she said quietly. Nathan shrugged, looking slightly embarrassed. Just the truth. They finished breakfast in comfortable silence, and then Nathan went to prepare the coach while Diana gathered her things. He had given her the quinine the night before, 2 small bottles that he pressed into her hands without accepting payment despite her protests. Get your father well, he had said. That is payment enough. Now, stepping out into the bright white world, Diana tucked the bottles carefully into her coat pocket and climbed up onto the driver's bench. Nathan appeared moments later, leading his bay horse already saddled. I am riding alongside, he explained, seeing her questioning look. In case we run into trouble, James will stay here and mind the ranch. Diana wanted to say he did not have to, that she could manage, but the words would have been a lie and they both knew it. Instead, she said, I appreciate it. The journey back to Tascosa took 5 hours. The snow was deep, the going slow, and several times they had to stop to dig the coach out of drifts or find alternate routes where the road had become impassable. But Nathan seemed to know every inch of the country, guiding them around obstacles, and through passages Diana would never have found on her own. They talked, in the way travelers do, sharing stories to pass the time. Nathan told her about learning to ride before he could walk, about trailing cattle from Texas to Kansas, about the time he had faced down a mountain lion with nothing but a knife. Diana told him about growing up on the stage routes, about the characters she had met traveling between stations, about the time bandits had tried to rob her father's coach, and he had bluffed them away with an unloaded shotgun. As they talked, Diana found herself studying Nathan when she thought he was not looking. The way he sat his horse, relaxed but alert. The way his eyes constantly scanned the horizon, reading the land. The way he smiled when she said something that amused him, a slow spread of warmth that made something flutter in her stomach. It was foolish, she told herself. She had known him less than a day. He had helped her because that was what decent people did, not because he had any particular interest in her. And yet, she could not help but notice the way his eyes lingered on her sometimes, or the way he seemed to position his horse close to the coach, as if reluctant to let too much distance grow between them. They reached Tascosa as the winter sun was setting, painting the snow pink and gold. Diana drove straight to her father's house, her heart in her throat. She had been gone nearly 2 full days. What if the fever had worsened? What if she was too late? But when she burst through the door, she found her father sitting up in bed, weak but conscious. His eyes widened when he saw her. Diana, he said, his voice rough. I was so worried. The storm. I am fine, Pa, Diana said, rushing to his side. She pulled out the quinine bottles. I brought medicine. Her father's eyes moved past her to where Nathan had appeared in the doorway, hesitant to intrude. Who is that? Nathan Norwood, Diana said. He helped me through the storm, gave me the quinine from his own supply. William Anderson studied Nathan with sharp eyes that fever had not dulled. Come in, young man. Let me thank you properly." Nathan stepped inside, removing his hat. "No thanks necessary, sir. Just glad I was in the right place at the right time. My daughter is my whole world," William said quietly. "If something had happened to her—" He did not finish the sentence, but he did not need to. The emotion in his voice said everything. "I understand, sir," Nathan said. "I lost my own father 3 years ago. I know what it is to fear losing family." Deanna prepared a dose of quinine mixed with water and helped her father drink it. He grimaced at the bitter taste but drank it all, then settled back against his pillows with a sigh. "You should rest, Pa," Deanna said. "I will make you some soup." "You should rest too," William said, looking at her closely. "You look exhausted." "I will," Deanna promised, "after I get you settled." She turned to Nathan, suddenly aware that he had been traveling all day too and had not eaten since breakfast. "Will you stay for supper? It is the least I can offer after everything you have done." Nathan hesitated, and Deanna saw something flicker in his eyes. Hope, maybe, or just simple loneliness. "I would like that," he said finally. "Thank you." Deanna made soup from the ingredients she found in her small pantry, simple but hearty, and she and Nathan ate at the rough table in the main room while her father dozed in the bedroom. Outside, night had fallen, and through the window Deanna could see stars beginning to appear in the clearing sky. "How often do you make the run to North Station?" Nathan asked, breaking a comfortable silence. "Twice a week," Deanna said. "More if there is extra mail or freight." "So I will see you again," Nathan said, and it was not quite a question. Deanna felt warmth bloom in her chest. "My route goes right past your ranch," she said. "I could stop, check on my coach, make sure your foreman took proper care of it." She was teasing, but there was truth underneath. Nathan smiled, that slow, warm smile she was already coming to recognize. "I would like that," he said. "And maybe, if you are not in a hurry, you could stay for dinner. I make a decent stew." "I remember your biscuits," Deanna said. "I think I could be persuaded to stop for dinner." They looked at each other across the table, and Deanna felt something shift like a door opening. This was not just gratitude or the lingering effects of shared danger. This was attraction, mutual and undeniable, simmering in the space between them. Nathan cleared his throat. "I should go," he said, though he did not move. "It is a long ride back, and I should not leave James alone with the ranch too long." "Of course," Deanna said, standing. She walked him to the door, suddenly reluctant to let him leave. Nathan paused on the threshold, looking down at her. In the lamplight, his eyes were very blue. "Deanna," he said, her name soft in his mouth. "I am glad I found you in that storm." "So am I," Deanna whispered. For a moment she thought he might kiss her. She could see the thought cross his mind, see the way his eyes dropped to her mouth. But instead, he just touched the brim of his hat in a small salute and stepped out into the night. Deanna watched him mount his horse and ride away, his form gradually disappearing into the darkness. When she could no longer see him, she closed the door and leaned against it, her heart beating faster than it should. 2 days later, her father's fever broke. The quinine had done its work, and while William was still weak, it was clear he would recover. Deanna spent those 2 days caring for him, making sure he ate and rested and took his medicine on schedule. But through it all, her thoughts kept drifting to Nathan, the way he had appeared out of the blizzard like something from a story. The way he had taken charge without making her feel incompetent. The way he had looked at her in the lamplight before he left. On the 3rd day, when her father was strong enough to sit in a chair by the stove, Deanna announced she was making the delayed run to North Station. "Take it slow," William cautioned. "The roads will still be bad." "I will," Deanna promised. "And I am stopping at the Norwood ranch on the way, to check on the horses," she added, though from the look her father gave her, he was not fooled. "Nathan Norwood seems like a good man," William said carefully. He is, Deanna agreed, not quite meeting her father's eyes. A man like that with his own ranch, he could offer a woman a good life, William continued. Pa, Deanna said, feeling her cheeks heat. I am just saying, William said, a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. I am not getting any younger, and I would like to know you are taken care of before I am gone. You are not going anywhere, Deanna said firmly, and I can take care of myself. I know you can, William said. But that does not mean you should have to. Deanna kissed her father's forehead and left before he could say anything else. But as she drove the coach north under a clear winter sky, she found herself thinking about his words. What would it be like to not face everything alone? To have a partner, someone strong and capable who saw her as an equal rather than a burden, someone like Nathan Norwood. The Norwood Ranch looked different in daylight without a blizzard obscuring it. Deanna could see the main house, sturdy and well-maintained, the barn and outbuildings, the corral where horses stood, their breath steaming in the cold air. It was a good ranch, the kind that spoke of hard work and careful management. Nathan emerged from the barn as she drove up, and the smile that broke across his face when he saw her made Deanna's heart skip. He strode over to the coach, reaching up to help her down from the driver's bench. Deanna, he said, his hands warm on her waist as he lifted her down. I was hoping you would stop. I said I would, Deanna replied, looking up at him. This close, she could see the flecks of darker blue in his eyes, the fine lines at the corners from squinting into the sun. How is your father? Better, much better. The quinine worked. He should make a full recovery. I am glad, Nathan said, and she could see he meant it. His hands were still on her waist, and Deanna became acutely aware of the warmth of them through her coat, the strength in his fingers. I brought payment, she said, reaching into her pocket and pulling out a small bundle of bills. For the quinine and the shelter. Nathan's face closed slightly. I told you no payment necessary. And I am telling you I pay my debts, Deanna said firmly. You saved my life and my father's. This is barely adequate compensation, but it is what I can afford. They stared at each other, wills clashing. Then Nathan said, keep your money. Instead, let me take you to dinner. A real dinner, not just stopping by my ranch. You want to court me? Deanna asked bluntly. Nathan blinked, clearly surprised by her directness. Then he smiled. Yes, he said simply. I do, if you are amenable. Deanna considered. She barely knew him. They had spent one night under his roof and a few hours traveling together. But she knew the important things. He was honorable. He was kind. He was capable. And when he looked at her, she felt something she had never felt before, a pull so strong it was almost frightening. I am amenable, she said. But I am not some delicate flower who needs rescuing, Nathan Norwood. If you are going to court me, you need to understand that. I know exactly who you are, Nathan said, his voice low and intense. A woman who drove a stage through a blizzard alone because she made a promise. A woman who takes care of her sick father and does not let anything stop her. That is exactly the woman I want to court. Deanna felt something warm unfurl in her chest. All right then, she said. Court me. Nathan's smile was brilliant. Have dinner with me tonight. I will cook and we can talk properly, get to know each other. I have to make my delivery to North Station, Deanna said, but I could stop here on my way back. I will be waiting, Nathan promised. Deanna made her delivery, explained to the station manager about the storm delay, and turned the coach around for the return trip. Her mind was not on the road but on the evening ahead. She realized she was nervous, which was foolish. She had already spent time with Nathan, but this was different. This was a courtship, an acknowledgement of the attraction between them. When she arrived back at the Norwood Ranch, the sun was setting and Nathan was waiting on the porch. He helped her stable the horses, his hands brushing hers as they worked together to remove harnesses and measure out feed. Each touch sent little sparks through Deanna's body, awareness building until the air between them seemed to hum with it. Inside, Nathan had prepared a feast by ranch standards. Stew rich with beef and vegetables, fresh bread, even a dried apple pie for dessert. They ate at the table in the main room and they talked. Diana learned that Nathan had always wanted to own land, that he had saved every penny from years of cattle drives to buy the ranch, that he loved the work even when it was hard, loved being his own master, that he read voraciously, everything he could get his hands on, because his mother had taught him that education was freedom. Nathan learned that Diana had never fit into what people expected of women, that she preferred the open road to parlors and sewing circles, that she loved the challenge of handling a 6-horse team, the satisfaction of making a difficult delivery, that she dreamed of a day when women could work openly in professions beyond teaching and sewing. "You are remarkable," Nathan said when they had finished eating and were sitting by the fire with coffee. "I am practical," Deanna corrected. "The world is what it is. I just refuse to let it limit me more than it has to." "Still remarkable," Nathan insisted. He reached over and took her hand, his fingers warm and calloused against hers. "Deanna, I know this is fast. We barely know each other, but I cannot stop thinking about you. From the moment I saw you fighting that blizzard, refusing to give up, I have not been able to get you out of my mind." Deanna's heart was pounding. "I think about you too," she admitted. "More than I should for someone I just met." "Then let us not pretend this is just dinner between friends," Nathan said. "Let us be honest. I want to know you, court you properly, see if this thing between us is real." "It is real," Deanna said softly. "I can feel it." Nathan shifted closer, his free hand coming up to cup her cheek. "May I kiss you?" Deanna answered by leaning into him, closing the distance between them. His lips met hers, gentle at first, testing, then deeper as she responded, her hand coming up to rest against his chest where she could feel his heart beating as fast as her own. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Nathan rested his forehead against hers. "Stay," he said quietly. "Not here in the house. I would not compromise you, but stay at the ranch tonight. James's wife lives in one of the cabins. You could stay with her. Leave in the morning." Deanna knew she should say no. She had already been gone longer than planned. But she found herself nodding, wanting to stretch this evening out, not ready to ride back into the cold darkness alone. "All right," she whispered. "I will stay." Over the following weeks, a pattern emerged. Deanna would make her stage runs, and she would stop at the Norwood ranch both coming and going. Sometimes just for an hour, sometimes for dinner. Nathan started timing his work, so he would be near the house when she was due to arrive. They talked about everything and nothing, learning each other's rhythms and quirks. Diana discovered that Nathan was terrible at singing but did it anyway when he was happy. That he had a scar on his left shoulder from a cattle drive stampede. That he wanted children someday, but was terrified of being a bad father. Nathan learned that Diana took her coffee black because sugar was expensive, and she would rather spend the money on books. That she could swear like a teamster, but rarely did. That she had a recurring dream about owning her own stage line, a fleet of coaches with her name on them. "Why not do it?" Nathan asked one evening as they sat on his porch watching the sunset paint the sky orange and pink. "I told you. No money, and no one would work for a woman owner." "I would," Nathan said simply. Deanna turned to stare at him. "What? If you started your own stage line, I would work for you. Drive if you needed it, tend horses, whatever was needed. You have a ranch to run." "I have a ranch I could sell," Nathan corrected, "or keep and hire a manager." "Deanna, you have a dream, you should chase it." "With what capital?" Deanna asked, frustrated. Nathan was quiet for a moment, then he said, "Marry me." Deanna felt the world tilt. "What? Marry me?" Nathan repeated, turning to face her fully. "I know it has only been a few weeks, I know it is fast. But I love you, Deanna Anderson. I love your strength and your stubbornness and the way you refuse to let the world tell you what you cannot do. Marry me, and we will pool our resources. Sell the ranch or keep it as security. Start your stage line together." "You do not love me," Deanna said, her voice shaking. "You barely know me." "I know you," Nathan said firmly. "I know what matters, and I am not proposing just to help you start a business. I am proposing because I cannot imagine my life without you in it. Because you are the first thing I think about when I wake up and the last thing before I sleep. Because when I picture my future, you are in it. Always." Deanna felt tears prick her eyes. "Nathan." "You do not have to answer now," Nathan said, though she could see the hope and fear warring in his expression. "Think about it. But know that I am serious, about you, about us, about building a life together where we are both free to chase our dreams." Deanna reached out and took his hand, threading her fingers through his. "I love you too," she said, the words feeling both terrifying and right. "I think I have since that first night when you took the reins and I realized I did not have to do everything alone. Is that a yes?" Nathan asked, hardly daring to hope. "It is a yes to thinking about it seriously," Deanna said. "I need to talk to my father, make sure he is well enough to manage without me, figure out the practical details." "Practical," Nathan said with a slight smile. "That is so very you." "Someone has to be," Deanna said, but she was smiling too. That night, lying in the cabin where James's wife Mary had made up a bed for her, Deanna stared at the ceiling and let herself imagine it. Marriage to Nathan. A real partnership where they built something together. The stage line she had always dreamed of, with Nathan beside her instead of having to fight alone. It was terrifying. It was exhilarating. It felt possible in a way nothing ever had before. The next morning, Diana drove back to Tascosa with Nathan's proposal sitting warm in her chest. She found her father much improved, strong enough to be up and moving around the house. "Pa," she said, sitting down at the table across from him, "I need to talk to you." William studied her face. "This is about Nathan Norwood." "Yes," Deanna admitted. "He asked me to marry him." "And what did you say?" "I said I needed to think about it, to talk to you." William was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Do you love him?" "Yes," Deanna said without hesitation. "Does he love you?" "He says he does." "Do you believe him?" Deanna thought about the way Nathan looked at her, the way he listened when she talked about her dreams, the way he had offered to give up his ranch to help her start a stage line. "Yes," she said, "I believe him." "Then what is holding you back?" William asked gently. "I am worried about leaving you," Deanna admitted. "And I am scared. What if I am wrong about him? What if marriage changes things? What if you pass up the chance at happiness because you are too afraid to reach for it?" William interrupted. "Deanna, I am not going to be around forever. Someday, probably sooner than either of us wants, you will be alone. Do you want to face that alone, or do you want a partner beside you?" "I have never needed anyone," Deanna said stubbornly. "Need and want are different things," William said. "You have never needed a man to take care of you." "That is true, but wanting someone to share your life with, that is not weakness, that is being human." Deanna felt something loosen in her chest. "What if I am not good at being married? I am not exactly soft and domestic." William laughed. "Deanna, any man who expected you to be soft and domestic would not be worth marrying. Nathan knows who you are. He proposed anyway. That tells me he wants you as you are, not some idea of what a wife should be." "You think I should say yes," Deanna said. "I think you should do what makes you happy," William corrected. "But yes, from what I have seen of Nathan Norwood, I think he would make you a fine husband. and I think you would make him a fine wife in your own particular way." Diana stood and hugged her father, feeling tears prick her eyes. "Thank you, Pa. Go get your cowboy," William said, patting her back, "and bring him to dinner so we can discuss this properly like civilized people." Diana laughed through her tears and went to find Nathan. She drove the coach to his ranch at a speed that was probably reckless, her heart pounding the whole way. Nathan was in the corral working with a young horse when she arrived. He looked up at the sound of the coach and vaulted the fence with an ease that made Diana's stomach flutter. "Diana," he said, concern in his voice as he took in her flushed face. "Is everything all right?" "Yes," Diana said, climbing down from the driver's bench. "Everything is perfect. Nathan Norwood, my answer is yes. Yes, I will marry you." Nathan's face transformed with joy. He caught her up in his arms and spun her around, both of them laughing. When he set her down, he kissed her, deep and thorough, a promise of all the kisses to come. "When?" he asked when they finally broke apart. "Soon," Diana said. "My father wants you to come to dinner to discuss things properly." "I will come tonight," Nathan said. "Every night if you want, Diana. I swear I will make you happy." "We will make each other happy," Diana corrected. "This is a partnership, remember, a partnership," Nathan agreed, kissing her again. "I like the sound of that." They were married 4 weeks later in a small ceremony in Tascosa. Diana wore a simple dress the color of sage, and Nathan wore his best suit. William gave her away with tears in his eyes, and the few friends they had invited cheered as the circuit preacher pronounced them husband and wife. The wedding night was spent at the ranch, in Nathan's bedroom that was now their bedroom. Diana had been nervous, not about the physical aspects, she understood those well enough, but about the vulnerability of it. Letting someone see her completely, no walls or defenses. But Nathan was gentle and patient, and when they finally came together, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. Like finding a piece of herself she had not known was missing. Afterward, lying in Nathan's arms with her head on his chest, Diana said, "I want to keep making the stage runs, even now that we are married." "I know," Nathan said, his hand stroking her hair. "I would never ask you to give that up. And I want to start planning the stage line, our stage line." "Then that is what we will do," Nathan said. "Tomorrow we can start looking at the numbers, figure out what we can afford." "Tomorrow," Diana agreed, smiling into the darkness. "Tonight I just want to be here with you." "Tonight and every night," Nathan murmured, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. The next months were a whirlwind of activity. Diana continued her stage runs while Nathan managed the ranch, but every spare moment was devoted to planning their business. They crunched numbers, researched routes, talked to other stage operators. It became clear that starting from scratch would be impossible, but buying an existing small line that was struggling, that might be feasible. They found their opportunity in the spring. A man named Howard Ellis, who ran a small stage service between Tascosa and 3 other towns, had fallen ill and wanted to sell. His operation consisted of 2 coaches, 8 horses, and the contracts for mail delivery on his routes. Nathan and Diana pooled their resources, Nathan selling half his cattle herd to raise capital and made an offer. Ellis accepted, and suddenly Diana found herself part owner of a stage line. It was terrifying and thrilling in equal measure. "What should we call it?" Nathan asked as they stood looking at the 2 coaches in their new barn. "Anderson Norwood Stage Line," Diana said immediately. "Equal partnership, equal billing." "Anderson Norwood," Nathan repeated, testing it. "I like it. Has a solid sound to it." They threw themselves into the work. Diana drove the routes she knew best while Nathan learned the others. They hired 2 additional drivers, men who William vouched for, and established a reputation for reliability that had been lacking under Ellis's management. Slowly, painfully, the business began to grow. William, recovered now but not strong enough for long drives, helped with the books and scheduling. He seemed to take particular pride in seeing his daughter's dream come to fruition, and Deanna often found him smiling when he thought she was not looking. A year after their marriage, Deanna realized she was pregnant. The realization came one morning when the smell of coffee, which she usually loved, made her rush outside to be sick. She sat on the porch steps, her hand on her still flat stomach, feeling a mix of joy and terror. She had known this was possible, of course. She and Nathan had taken no precautions. But knowing something intellectually and facing the reality of it were different things. A baby would change everything. How could she drive a stagecoach while pregnant? How could she manage the business with an infant to care for? Nathan found her there 20 minutes later, still sitting on the steps with a dazed expression. He sat down beside her, concern creasing his brow. "What is wrong?" he asked gently. "I am pregnant," Deanna said bluntly. Nathan went very still. Then a slow smile spread across his face. "We are having a baby, Deanna confirmed. "But Nathan, the business, the stage line. I cannot drive while pregnant, and after, we will figure it out," Nathan said firmly, taking her hand. "That is what we do. We face challenges and we figure them out together. We have good drivers now. You can focus on the business side, the scheduling and contracts and expansion plans you are always talking about. And after the baby comes, we will adjust again." "You are not worried?" Deanna asked. "I am terrified," Nathan admitted. "I told you, I am scared of being a bad father, but I am also happier than I have ever been. We are having a baby, Deanna. Our baby." Deanna felt tears prick her eyes. "You are going to be a wonderful father." "And you are going to be a wonderful mother," Nathan said, kissing her softly. "Even if you refuse to be a conventional one." Deanna laughed through her tears. "Especially because I refuse to be a conventional one." The pregnancy progressed smoothly. Deanna followed the doctor's advice to stop driving the coach after 4 months, though she chafed at the restriction. She poured her energy into the business instead, negotiating new contracts and planning expansion routes. With her behind-the-scenes coordination, and Nathan and their drivers making runs, the Nathan Norwood stage line continued to thrive. William doted on his expectant daughter, fussing over her in a way he never had before. Deanna tolerated it with good humor, understanding that her father was excited about becoming a grandfather. Nathan was attentive without being smothering, understanding Diana's need to feel useful and capable even as her body changed and grew. He would sit with her in the evenings, his hand on her swelling belly, talking to their unborn child about the ranch and the horses and the wide open country they would inherit. Diana gave birth on a cold February morning, 9 months after discovering she was pregnant. The labor was long and difficult, and there were moments when she wondered if she would survive it. But Nathan was there through all of it, holding her hand, wiping her brow, whispering encouragement. When the baby finally came, squalling and red-faced, the doctor announced, "It is a boy, a son." Deanna looked at the tiny, perfect creature in her arms and felt her heart crack open with love so fierce it was almost painful. Nathan leaned over them both, his eyes wet with tears, and touched one finger to their son's tiny hand. "He is beautiful," Nathan whispered. "You are amazing. You did this." "We did this," Deanna corrected, smiling up at her husband. They named him William Nathan, after both grandfathers, though they called him Liam from the start. He was a healthy baby with his father's blue eyes and his mother's determined chin. Deanna took to motherhood with the same practical approach she took to everything else, refusing to coddle but providing firm, loving care. When Liam was 3 months old, Diana started going back to the office, bringing the baby with her. She would work on accounts and schedules with Liam in a basket at her feet, and she found she could manage both motherhood and business, though it required more juggling than she had expected. Nathan proved to be a devoted father, surprising Diana with how naturally he took to it. He would spend hours with Liam, talking to him, showing him the horses, carrying him around the ranch. When Liam was fussy, Nathan could often soothe him when Diana could not, walking him around the house while humming toneless songs. The Nathan Norwood stage line continued to grow. By Liam's first birthday, they had expanded to 5 coaches and 12 horses, running routes throughout the Texas Panhandle. They had built a solid reputation, and contracts came to them now instead of them having to scrabble for business. Diana had achieved her dream, but it looked different than she had imagined. Not just her name on the coaches, but hers and Nathan's together. Not running it alone, but as part of a partnership that made the work easier and the victories sweeter. On Liam's second birthday, as they celebrated with cake that Mary had made and surrounded by ranch hands who had become like family, Diana looked around at her life and felt content in a way she never had before. Nathan caught her eye across the room and smiled, that warm, slow smile that still made her heart skip, and she smiled back. That night, after Liam was asleep and they were alone in their bedroom, Nathan said, "I have been thinking." "Dangerous," Diana teased. Nathan smiled but continued seriously. "I think we should expand beyond just stage service. Start a freight operation too. We have the infrastructure now, the horses and the drivers and the reputation. We could haul goods, not just mail and passengers." "That would require significant investment," Diana said, but her mind was already working through the logistics. More wagons, heavier draft horses, storage facilities. "I know," Nathan said, "but I think we could do it. The railroad is coming, Diana. Everyone knows it. When it does, passenger stage service is going to decline. But freight, there will always be places the railroad cannot reach, goods that need hauling over rough country." Diana felt a familiar thrill run through her. A new challenge. A new opportunity to build something. "You are right," she said slowly. "We should start planning, research what it would take, what the market is." "Tomorrow," Nathan said, pulling her close. "Tonight I just want to be here with you." "Tonight and every night," Diana echoed his words from their wedding night and kissed her husband. They expanded into freight over the next year, and it proved to be a wise decision. The railroad did come, just as Nathan had predicted, and passenger stage traffic declined. But their freight business boomed, hauling supplies to remote ranches and mining camps, moving goods between towns the railroad did not serve. When Liam was 4, Diana found herself pregnant again. This time she was less afraid, more confident in her ability to balance motherhood and business. Their second child was born on a sunny May morning, a daughter with dark hair and her mother's determined expression. They named her Charlotte, after Nathan's mother, and she was as different from her brother as could be. Where Liam was careful and thoughtful, Charlotte was bold and impulsive. Where Liam was content to watch, Charlotte wanted to touch and do everything herself. "She is going to give us trouble," Nathan said fondly one evening as he watched 2-year-old Charlotte try to climb onto a horse that was easily 10 times her size. "She reminds me of someone," Diana said with a smile, gently extracting their daughter from the horse. "Cannot imagine who," Nathan said, grinning. Life settled into a new rhythm. The business continued to thrive under their joint management. William, now in his 60s and slowing down, retired from active involvement, but remained a beloved presence in his grandchildren's lives. Diana and Nathan had built not just a business but a family, a life rich with purpose and love. When Liam was 7 and Charlotte was 3, Deanna realized she was pregnant a third time. This pregnancy was harder than the previous two, and the doctor cautioned her to take things easy. Deanna chafed at the restriction but obeyed, letting Nathan and their now quite capable staff handle more of the day-to-day operations. Their third child, a son they named Thomas, was born premature and small. For the first few weeks of his life, Deanna and Nathan lived in fear that they would lose him. But Thomas proved to be a fighter, growing stronger each day until the doctor finally pronounced him healthy. 3 children, Nathan said one night as they watched their family sleep. Liam in his own bed, Charlotte curled up with a rag doll, baby Thomas in his cradle. "We have built quite the life, haven't we?" "We have," Deanna agreed, leaning into her husband's embrace. "Sometimes I think about that blizzard, about how different things would be if you had not found me that day." "I think about it too," Nathan said. "I think about how close I came to riding past. I almost did, you know. Thought it was foolish to be out in that weather. But something told me to check, to make sure whoever was driving that coach was all right." "I am glad you listened to that something," Deanna said softly. "So am I," Nathan said, kissing the top of her head. "You gave me everything, Deanna: purpose, love, a family, a life bigger than I ever imagined." "We gave each other those things," Deanna corrected. "That was always the deal, partners." "Partners," Nathan agreed. "Always." The years rolled on, each one bringing new challenges and new joys. The Nathan Norwood Freight and Stage Company, as it was now known, became one of the most respected operations in the Texas Panhandle. They employed over 30 people at their peak, and their green and gold coaches were a familiar sight on roads throughout the region. Liam grew into a serious young man who loved the business side of the operation, poring over ledgers and contracts with the same intensity his mother once had. Charlotte became an expert horsewoman and an excellent driver, inheriting her mother's skill with a team. Thomas, the baby, surprised everyone by developing a talent for mechanics, fascinated by how things worked and constantly tinkering to make the coaches run smoother and more efficiently. William Anderson passed away peacefully in his sleep when Liam was 15, Charlotte 11, and Thomas 8. He died knowing his daughter was happy and successful, surrounded by family who loved him. Deanna grieved deeply, but she also felt grateful. Her father had lived to see her dreams come true, had known his grandchildren, had been part of the life she had built. At the funeral, Nathan stood beside Deanna, his hand in hers, a solid presence as she said goodbye. The children stood with them, old enough to understand loss but young enough to believe it could be overcome. They were right, Deanna realized. Loss could be overcome. Not forgotten but integrated, made part of the tapestry of a life. Deanna was 40 when the automobile came to Tascosa. The first one, a sputtering loud contraption that frightened horses and attracted crowds, arrived on a Tuesday. Deanna and Nathan stood with half the town, watching it chug down the main street. "Times are changing," Nathan observed. "They always are," Deanna replied. "The question is whether we change with them." They looked at each other, and Deanna saw understanding in her husband's eyes. They had navigated every change so far by staying flexible, by being willing to adapt. This would be no different. Over the next decade, they gradually shifted their business model again. Horses gave way to trucks. Stage coaches became delivery vehicles. The nature of the work changed, but the core of it remained the same. They moved goods and people where they needed to go, reliably and efficiently. Liam took over more of the business as Nathan and Deanna began to step back. At 25, he had his father's steady competence and his mother's fierce determination. Charlotte, at 21, ran the transportation division with skill and confidence. Thomas, at 18, was revolutionizing their fleet with mechanical improvements that made them faster and more reliable than their competitors. On their 30th wedding anniversary, Nathan and Deanna sat on the porch of the ranch house, now expanded and modernized but still the same building where they had spent their wedding night. Their children were grown, running the business that bore their family name. The world was different, faster and louder and more complicated, but some things remained constant. "You regret any of it?" Nathan asked, taking Deanna's hand in his, their fingers intertwining with the ease of 3 decades of practice. Diana thought about the question. She thought about the girl she had been, driving a stagecoach through a blizzard, alone and determined. She thought about the woman she had become, a wife and mother and successful businesswoman, still determined but no longer alone. "No," she said finally. "Not a single moment. Every choice led me here to this life, to you. How could I regret that?" Nathan smiled and leaned over to kiss her, his lips warm against hers. "I love you, Deanna Anderson Norwood, just as much now as the day I rode out of that blizzard and saw you fighting to keep that coach moving." "I love you too," Deanna said. "You filled that seat beside me, and I have never been lonely since." They sat together as the sun set over the Texas plains, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink and gold. In the distance, they could hear their grandchildren playing, Liam's children now, a boy of 5 and twin girls of 3. The next generation, who would inherit not just a business but a legacy of determination and partnership. Life had not been easy. There had been lean years and hard times, moments when they thought they might lose everything. But they had faced it all together, partners in every sense of the word, and they had built something that would outlast them both. As darkness fell and the stars began to appear, Nathan said, "Come to bed, wife." "In a minute, husband," Deanna replied, not ready to let go of this moment. The peace of it, the satisfaction of a life well lived, but Nathan was right. There would be time for reflection later. For now, there was the present, this moment, this man beside her. Deanna stood and followed Nathan inside, into the warmth and light of the home they had made together. The years continued to pass, bringing with them the joys and sorrows that make up a full life. More grandchildren arrived, 7 in total, each one different and precious. Deanna and Nathan aged together, their hair going gray, their bodies slowing, but their minds remaining sharp and their love deepening with each passing year. When Deanna was 63, she officially retired from active involvement in the business, though she still consulted on major decisions. Nathan had retired 2 years earlier, content to spend his days on the ranch, now run by a competent manager, and with his grandchildren who adored him. They traveled something they had never had time for during their working years. They visited cities they had only heard of, saw oceans and mountains and wonders they had only read about. But they always came back to the ranch, to Tascosa, to the wide open spaces of the Texas Panhandle that had been their home for so long. Diana was 70 when she woke one morning to find Nathan's side of the bed empty. She found him in the kitchen, making coffee as he had done thousands of mornings before. But something was different. His movements were slower, more careful. "Nathan," she said, concern sharpening her voice. He turned to her and smiled, that same warm smile that had captured her heart 46 years ago. "I am all right," he said, "just feeling my age today." It was the beginning of the end, though neither of them acknowledged it. Over the next 2 years, Nathan's health slowly declined. Nothing dramatic, no single illness, just the gradual wearing down of a body that had worked hard for 76 years. Diana cared for him with the same practical competence she had brought to every other challenge in her life. She helped him when he needed it and stepped back when he did not, understanding that Nathan needed to maintain his dignity even as his body failed him. On a crisp October morning, Nathan woke and said, "I want to go to the porch, watch the sunrise one more time." Diana knew what he meant by one more time, though she did not want to acknowledge it. She helped him to the porch, wrapped him in blankets, and sat beside him as the sun painted the eastern sky in shades of rose and gold. "It is beautiful," Nathan said softly. "This land, this life, you." "Nathan," Diana said, her voice breaking. "I am not afraid," he said, reaching for her hand. "How can I be afraid when I have had this, when I have had you? Diana, loving you, building this life with you, it was the greatest adventure of my life." "Do not talk like that," Diana said, tears running down her face. "You are not going anywhere." "We both know that is not true," Nathan said gently. "But it is all right. I am 76 years old and I have lived a full life. I have no regrets. Except maybe that I will not get to see what happens next. Our grandchildren, they are going to do amazing things." "They got that from you," Diana said. "They got it from both of us," Nathan corrected. He squeezed her hand, his grip weak but warm. "Promise me something, anything. Do not stop living when I am gone. You have too much left to do, too much to see. Promise me you will keep going." "I promise," Diana whispered. They sat together as the sun rose higher, warming the cool morning air. Nathan's breathing gradually slowed, becoming shallower. Diana held his hand and told him stories of their life together. The blizzard, their wedding, the birth of their children, the growth of their business. All the moments, big and small, that had made up their 46 years together. When the sun was fully risen, Nathan took one last deep breath and did not take another. He died as he had lived, peacefully and with dignity, his hand in Diana's. Diana sat with him for a long time, not ready to let go. She thought about the girl she had been, driving through a blizzard, alone. And the woman she was now, who had lost her partner but would never be alone again because Nathan lived on in their children, their grandchildren, the business they had built, and in her own heart. Finally, she stood and went to tell her children that their father was gone. The funeral was large, attended by hundreds of people whose lives Nathan and Diana had touched over the years. Employees, friends, business associates, neighbors. They all came to pay their respects to a man who had been respected and loved in equal measure. Diana stood straight and dry-eyed through the service, supported by her children on either side. She had promised Nathan she would keep going, and she would. But that did not mean it did not hurt. The pain was vast and deep, a wound that she knew would never fully heal. After the funeral, life continued. Diana found ways to fill her days. She spent time with her grandchildren, telling them stories about their grandfather. She consulted on the business, though Liam and Charlotte and Thomas had it well in hand. She even, at her children's urging, wrote a memoir of the early days of the Nathan Norwood stage line. The blizzard, meeting Nathan, building their business and their family. The memoir became something of a local sensation when it was published, and Diana found herself giving talks and interviews. She discovered she enjoyed it, enjoyed sharing the story of a time that was rapidly fading from living memory. Diana lived to be 89 years old, sharp and active until the very end. She died peacefully in her sleep, in the same bed where she had slept with Nathan for 46 years. Her children and grandchildren and even some great-grandchildren surrounded her in her final days, and she left the world knowing she was deeply loved. At her funeral, Liam stood to give the eulogy. He talked about his mother's strength, her determination, her refusal to let the world limit her. But mostly, he talked about her love. her love for her family, for the land, for the business she and Nathan had built, and most of all, her love for Nathan, a love that had lasted beyond death and would inspire generations to come. The Nathan Norwood Freight Company continued to operate well into the 20th century, eventually becoming a regional powerhouse with operations across 3 states. But those who ran it never forgot its origins. A story of a woman driving a stagecoach through a blizzard, and a man who rode out of that blizzard to help her. 2 people who found in each other a partnership that transformed both their lives. In Tascosa, there is now a small museum dedicated to the history of the Texas Panhandle. In one corner, carefully preserved, is an old stagecoach painted green and gold. A placard beside it tells the story of Diana Anderson and Nathan Norwood, pioneers who built an empire on grit, determination, and love. Visitors often linger there, touching the worn wood of the driver's bench, imagining what it must have been like to live in those wild, dangerous, beautiful days. And if sometimes, on cold winter nights when the wind howls across the plains, people claim to see a ghost coach being driven through the darkness by a woman with fierce eyes and a man with a warm smile riding beside her, well, who is to say they are wrong? Some loves are strong enough to transcend death, to echo through time, to inspire those who come after. Diana and Nathan's love was one of those. And though they are long gone, their story remains, a testament to the power of partnership, determination, and a single moment on a blizzard-swept road when 2 lonely souls found each other and changed the course of their lives forever.